All right, if the last of you can make your way in and find your seats, please. We're going to be starting. I'm very happy to invite to the stage Isaac and Pat from Mann Consulting. Please come on stage. Everybody give them a round of applause, please. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, guys. This is, I would say last year I was you were Jimmy Buffett, and I was Garth Brooks. So this year, Denim Dan, Flannel Francis.
Yeah.
Right?
The appropriate attire for Denver.
Hi, guys. So quick announcement on all of this. Can we get the speaker notes too, FYI? But yeah, sit back, relax. At the end of the presentation, we'll throw a nice QR code up there. It will be a link to all of our docs. Our GitHub page will be on there. This presentation is going to be light on slides, but heavy on scripts. So like I said, we'll share this at the end, so don't worry about keeping your camera out and trying to take notes and all that. We're going to discuss coding concepts, but not actually show the code, so follow us. Find us after if you want to go over some of the stuff, as well as all the links. So let's kick this off. Who is Mann? So first and foremost, we're an MSP out of San Francisco. We focus on co-management with our clients. We help a lot of unique Jamf instances, or we have a lot of unique Jamf instances with a bunch of custom tooling. We centrally monitor everything for each one of our Jamf instances at each one of our clients, sometimes multiples at one. Our goal is to not settle for 98% compliance, but actually shoot for 100% each time. We've built custom workflows for almost every application that's out there. These are just images that we've put together here. We use ChatGPT and other AI tools just to literally make the images of these slides. But the idea is to automate for patching, compliance, and device stability as a whole.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we do with our coding concepts was try and make each workflow kind of synergetic with another workflow so that something that was doing username detection possibly could talk to software updates so that you could prompt for a secure token or other things where these workflows are working together as applications inside of a Jamf instance.
Cool. So to kick things off, we have to understand how we got here. Our number of Jamf instances was continuing to grow rapidly, and we needed to realize how to audit each, or we realized that trying to audit each one was next to impossible individually. So we wanted a way to monitor policies from a high level and track issues, review policy logs, their outputs, and as you all know, even in one instance that doesn't scale, let alone to tens and now hundreds of instances. So we set out to figure out how to centrally log everything, and in walked Datadog to literally produce viable metrics for us. Suddenly we realized we had a lot of work to do after that. Running scripts across many versions of macOS with different software installed meant that there was a lot of variables that would cause failures. After extensive code cleanup on our end, our metrics became more manageable, and we were able to create target alerts for specific issues and webhook them directly to Slack so that we had actionable tasks in real time. So for example, like look here, Slack alert, we realized that there's a 404 with Signal's download URL, so we know that we better fix that before it impacts all of our clients that are installing Signal. The central logging gave us the ability to be more nimble with CI/CD pipelines for all of our Jamf workflows. So I made a note to myself to get click happy here because we have some animations. So this is our architecture. We have our Jamf Cloud instances. Then we have all of our managed devices. We log everything to Datadog. We then create custom alerts in Slack depending on their severity. When we have these alerts in Slack, similar to that last one you saw on Signal, we have breadcrumbs that bring us back to the instance that's affected, if not one, multiple. So then we log into our dashboard. There we go. And select the specific Jamf instances and push our workflows for the remediation. And we're in the green. So everyone knows the buzzword nowadays. I made a fun joke that said, let's close our eyes, pretend that it's 2021, and we're talking NFTs, but it is now 2025 and AI is the buzzword. It's here to stay. So the obvious call out for a lot of this is really just we know it's obvious, but AI is not human. We ask that, when you write code, you care more about, or the AI code cares more about the actual code itself versus the human experience it provides. So we're just throwing this up here to literally put a guardrail on it. We're doing it ourselves. We figured we'd speak about it. Key considerations when using AI to provide code is, will the code interrupt the employee's work and provide a negative experience? What are the ways that code could stall or delay an output? Is the code really optimized for Mac OS? And is it disruptive? For example, if we're installing something, should we download it in the background before we prompt the end user to do anything? So this is some fun snippets, but a true story. Gemini had said, I have failed you completely and catastrophically. I cannot find your files. I have lost your data.
Don't be that Mac admin.
Yeah, do not be that Mac admin. So this is Gemini's CLI messed up a very well-known command, the make dir, make directory command, and it didn't create the folder before trying to copy the files into that folder. It just resulted in overwriting all the previous ones that were there. So we call this out simply because, again, we want you to be cautious but continue to be curious. All right, these are our 3 pillars of how we defined a lot of our workflows. So what we did, how we did it, and why we did it.
So going more into coding concepts, we realized that we had a lot of different scripts performing different functions. macOS upgrades, macOS updates, username detection, who's using the computer. The list went from there. And we started to realize there was a lot of commonality between these scripts with functions. For example, who is the current user? What is their home directory? The printLog function that we talked about earlier. So one thing that we found that is really successful for us when we're writing scripts is we have what we consider to be a default header. And the default header is version controlled. It contains a link to documentation, some functions, and some variables that maybe was going to be used across your organization. This allows you to kind of have this bit at the top that you can interchange and fix in one spot, and then roll out to all of your other scripts in your instance if you find bugs or issues with them. So taking a look at this default header, just some quick information at the top about what it is, what it does, maybe an internal link to documentation that can be rich outside of the code. Documentation in code we'll talk about later, but it gets messy. You can see we have some common variables, like I said, who's the user? When do we start running? And then we go into functions for logging. And one of those functions that we talked about was printLog. So this is how we started to figure out, are our scripts doing what they're doing, and taking some time to get metrics on those scripts. Every time we prompt a user to quit Chrome to update it, if we don't update Chrome on that, that is a terrible experience for that user. They will remember that more than the other 500 times that you were successful. So printLog allowed us to pipe the data to Datadog from every instance, create anonymized macro data or personalized micro data to say, this failed here and this is why. So the printLog function has a couple fun features. First off, like I said, it goes to Datadog. So this is a script that is running on a computer to update Postman. It shows which Jamf instance it's running from. And it gives the output as it's running live. So I can actually see a computer running a Postman update in real time without having to screen share with the customer or do anything else. The data's there. The other thing that it does, everybody knows the policy logs for a script. They're pretty bland, right? They just show what happened. We updated a little bit so that we could have, sorry, 2 clicks. We could have a timestamp, so we knew how long it took. Did we pause for 10 minutes on the user? That's not great. And then we also have the ability to set logging levels. So info, warn, error, and debug. So you could have theoretical debugging functions in a script that don't log by default, but if you really want to get a little more data, you can go in, modify the policy, enable debug logging, and get a lot more. So this was what we did. So talking on comments in code. So this is a quote from one of my favorite authors. If you've read Cormac McCarthy, you probably were really annoyed at first at his lack of quotation marks when in dialogue, contractions with apostrophes. But I kind of feel like this with code. A lot of times I'll see code out there that'll have a hash that says change directory and then cd something. We don't need to really comment on every situation. But what we did internally, instead of totally getting rid of comments, we added in print logs instead. So we have useful data as to what is happening that we can track. And also, if you're reading the code later, you can look and see. So if an example would be a print log function that says downloading this file, and then the code to download the file. So that way, you know where you are in the process when you're looking at the logs for troubleshooting later. And if you're reading the code, you know what's happening. Another function that we put into our default header was the BenLockSense. User presence with a lot of workflows is really important, right? You can't just quit Chrome and update it. That's not okay if somebody has half an email typed. Now, we also don't want to prompt people to quit Chrome if the person's not there. That's a waste of time. Dealing with Jamf policies, they run sequentially. So if I prompt a user to quit Chrome and I do that for 2 hours, no other Jamf policy runs for 2 hours until that one finishes. So BenLockSense gives us a way to detect user presence at the beginning of a workflow and make some decisions based off of, is the user there and available? Another thing that BenLockSense does is it detects the last time the keyboard or mouse was used. So not only like is the screen unlocked, but do I have keystrokes? Is like there a human there? And in some scenarios, what we'll do is we'll open and realize, well, the screen's been locked for 7 days. I don't know what I'm bothering doing here, prompting the user for anything. So we can just quit, move on to the next day, leave a little log that says, I quit, the user wasn't there for 15,000 seconds, call it a day. So another quick, sorry, we threw in a lot of AI quotes to highlight AI can be helpful and not. I asked AI to write me a quote for if being present is good because of the BenLockSense, and that's actually pretty good. And then also another thing that we talk about in our scripts is the user experience in seconds. If you take away focus from an employee for 60 seconds, you do that to 1,000 employees, 16.6 hours of work is lost. So you got to think about every time you interact with them or make them wait for something. So as Pat mentioned earlier, do we download in advance in the background and then prompt the user to update? Or do we say you have an update and then make them watch the download bar? One of them is not a good experience. So one of the things that we did find was built-in shell commands are extremely fast compared to external commands. So if you're parsing data and you use sed or awk, it is 50 times faster to do some of that parsing with parameter expansion. Even if you do multiple parameter expansions, the date command takes about a second, whereas if you use the built-in SFT time, it's milliseconds. And as that starts to add up across maybe 500 commands that you run through the course of a script, those seconds do really add up. So we really focus on built-ins where possible. And I recommend, this is a great place actually for AI to give you advice, is, hey, I want to parse this data. How do I do it in just parameter expansion? I don't want to know any external tooling. And sometimes it'll come up with some really creative ways to do it where you can put two variables together, parameter expansion them, and get the data you want out of it. And also here I wanted to pick on Claude a little bit. I asked Claude to write me a little poem, I guess, or haiku using parameter expansion to highlight parameter expansion. And Claude did decent job. Unless you look at the last line, I don't know what a sec gone is, but apparently AI can't spell seconds in code, so watch out when you copy and paste what AI tooling will give you. This was a good highlight of that. One of the final ones that we put into our header is clean up and exit. And it's a simple function that I think I grabbed it from Installamator code originally, so Armin might own that. But it's a way to do the basic functions you need to do on leaving. Some of those are, I exited with an error code or success code. I ran for X number of seconds, so I have a data point of how long that script took. Other things could be whether or not it's locked. The nice thing about this function is we put it in the default header, but if you redeclare a function again in ZSH, you overwrite that original function. So if a script maybe wants to do more like clean up temporary files, output some data, write to a couple other files, you can redeclare the cleanup and exit later and have a more expanded functionality for a cleanup and exit. And we'll go on one of those cleanup and exit functions right at the end that we felt made our customers using Jamf, being able to read our code and our outputs a lot cleaner and clearer. So, and then one of the final things I'm going to talk about, who knows about xtrace in here? Set minus x? Cool. The rest of you, well, your mind will be blown. It will literally output every piece of data that the script is parsing as it parses it. It will, if you give it a variable, it'll show you the variable. It'll show you the processing of the variable. So if your script is not working properly, set minus x is going to be your best friend. The opposite of set minus x is actually set plus x. So you can turn it on in parts of your code. So you don't care about the debugging for the first 1,000 lines. You really care about this one part that's not working. So we're going to show a little example of how that works. So this is an AI dog, but it's my dog. This is Max. Max's favorite toy in the world is ball. He loves ball. Now, I wrote a script called mydog.sh that prompts my dog's name is Max. Please enter Max's favorite toy. So where it says ball, I typed in the word ball, and the script came back and said that is not correct. I know that's right, but what happened? Why is it not working? I wrote the script here. So what we did is we added in set minus x into this code. And we reran the same command. And what you see here is we're actually showing every line of the command as it's run and what ZSH is processing at the time. So on line 3, I had a variable that declared my dog's name as Max. On line 4, I outputted to the terminal. My dog's name is Max. 5, I used the read command to find out his best toy. Line 8, we see the if statement where I'm comparing the input from the terminal with what I expect. And as you can see here, lowercase b-a-l-l equals uppercase b lowercase a-l-l. They're technically not the same, but that's what the if statement technically has in it. So my realization is I need to either parse lowercase or I need to type in uppercase ball. A very simplified example of using xtrace, but it will completely save your skin over and over again. Finally, hand over to Pat.
Yeah. So as Isaac mentioned, the cleanup and exit, we created JamfPrettyExit. So Jamf Pro limits policy logs to 25 kilobytes, and this can be an issue when trying to review the initial output or final output of the script, let alone trying to find the needle in the haystack, which if you've done it, you know you're scrolling through trying to find it. So what JamfPrettyExit does is it manipulates Jamf scripts, output putting the cleanup and exit log at the top of the policy logs, and this allows for any Jamf admin to quickly see the outcome of the policy in very plain text. Why is this important? And it comes from, we all don't want to give everyone admin access. Your Jamf 400, you want to hold the crown of being able to make sure that you're manipulating things within Jamf. So you know the change management, you know it's done. But if you have someone that's more junior, or even a client of ours that wants to be, handy and poke around and understand what's going on, trying to have them understand to sift through the actual Jamf Pro policy log output is tough. So what we did with this was we made it really easy to read the outcome. And that, again, gives the more junior staff on our side, as well as our clients, the ability to go, that's what's wrong with it, and then tell the team versus trying to MacGyver it, fixing it, and potentially causing more damage. So in an example, we'll look at the details of this script. So in the first example of JamfPrettyExit, we can see that the macOS Sequoia upgrade policy didn't run because the user wasn't present for 600 seconds, and the screen was locked for a whopping 740,000 seconds, roughly 8.5 days.
So you'll notice that it's at the top of the log. The end of the log is at the top here, and that was one of the key things that we really wanted.
Yeah, hitting the policy logs button in the bottom right corner, and then just seeing that face value. Here's what's broken. Another example is the Apple software updates didn't proceed because the computer didn't meet our minimum requirement of being on version macOS 13 to avoid any compatibility issues. Again, very simple. Here's the problem. This is why this policy will not run on this machine. And last, you can see that Jamf Protect didn't get installed because the computer doesn't have the correct configuration profile installed that contains the bootstrap. So very, I would say, a broad stroke for any junior admin to be like, this is the problem, then I'm going to cut a ticket for the Jamf team to then go and remediate if it's not caught in our logging detection.
Or even a customer, the Jamf policy log having just pass and fail or completed and fail doesn't tell much. Error codes are, does anybody know what error code 88 is until you get that logging there? You don't. You have to go find them and redocument them. This will really help other people in your Jamf instance not ask you questions, which is time saver. Big
time saver. So as promised, I'm going to throw a QR code up on the screen if you want to grab your phones. This is a link to our Jamf 2025 documentation. If you're feeling lucky, you'll scan the center one. And I'm just kidding, don't scan that center one. So Q&A.
All right.
Excellent, thank you. Everybody give them a round of applause real quick. All right, I have a mic here for anybody who has a question. Go ahead and raise your hand and I'll run you the mic. Come on, don't be shy, it's okay.
While we're waiting quickly, this will take you to a landing page on our site. If you scroll to the bottom, past the who we are, it'll take you to a GitHub repo where we've provided you with what we kind of consider to be a baseline default header that you can get started with. And it includes a lot of the functions that we talked about, and then you can go and expand from there on your own.
So what was our documentation? Our documentation.
Question over here.
So you guys mentioned you have like a bunch of Jamf instances that you kind of oversee. How are you managing those at scale? Like, are you automating things with like infrastructure as code or, the APIs behind the scenes? And how do you manage like sign in with those Jamf instances as well as, now there's the Jamf account coming into play with some of those instances?
Sure. Jamf account was one of those things that the first time I saw it, I was so mad. And then I pulled at the string a little bit, and as an MSP, I realized I can delegate access into the instance with my SSO and still have the customer's SSO in there. So I can have delegated admins from my Okta, and they can have delegated admins from their Okta. And then I was like, this is actually really cool. I can offboard somebody from every Jamf instance like that, and there's no password lying around. So our access is now through Jamf account. You can do group-based permission sets from the OIDC groups claim. So you never have to create the account for the person and then have to go delete the account for that person when they leave. On the question of how we manage all the instances, we do have a centralized dashboard that leverages the API to upload workflows to customer instances. They are sets of XML files that contain all the bits, policies, groups.
Scope.
extension
exclusion
attributes,
groups,
et
extension
cetera.
attributes.
And then we tried to keep as much of the actual stuff in the codes, in the code base. Because then we can do a quick update for the code base for everyone without interrupting how they have it scoped. Does this person or does this customer not want updates happen to engineering? Does this like all the little scoping things, it's not touched because you're just mass uploading the code base behind it. So I don't allow my team to create policies in the UI. They have to come to me with a GitHub pull for a ton of XML and JSON files. Sorry, guys.
Cool. We got time for a couple more questions. Anybody else? Just go ahead and wave at me. I'll run you the mic. Once, twice. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you coming up on stage, giving a great presentation. All right, so we have about 30 minutes until the next session starts in here. We're going to go and turn the music back on. Thank you so much for attending. Appreciate it. Make sure you grab a photo of the QR code if you need it. Thank you, Mann.